Introduce yourself, and what is your role in the Toon All Star Slam team?
I'm a concept artist for stages in the game. When the team decides on a stage, I draw it up and note where I want platforms to be and whatnot before sending it to the artist to sprite it, and the result is what you see in game.
When did you join the All Star Slam team?
I joined December of 2021.
Is this your first time working on a game? And if so, what have you learned from your experience so far?
Yes, this is my very first time working on a game. Over the course of development, I found that even concept art and finalizing a roster can be pretty tricky business.
What's your history with the other developers? Do you have any prior history with them? Or did you meet them while working on this game?
We had some friends over on the Indie Rumble team. They even had one of their members join before their project got shut down. One of our members, Noobstack, is also working on a game called EXE Clash IIRC.
How do you communicate with the other members of the team?
We have a private chat room specially made for devs to talk about the best course of action to get things done.
What was the most difficult part you faced while working on the demo, and how did you overcome these difficulties?
This is a very easy question. Anne Boonchoi. Anne and her sprites were not working with us and she needed to be delayed. She was replaced with Grim for the first demo.
Do you have any specific inspirations when working for concept art?
I take an image of the location from Google Images and draw it out. As I draw it out, I then look at it and go, oh, maybe that can be a platform.
What factors do you consider when designing a character or a stage?
A lot of factors go into what stages or characters make it in. Their popularity, how much they're requested from the community, how they'd work in a platform fighter.
What do you think is the most important part of designing a stage?
I think the most important factor to designing a stage is having the environment match the original show as closely as possible.
What are some general features you wish to add for the full release of this game?
Calco and I both agree that a big subspace emissary like story mode would be incredibly cool to see for a game like this. I would also add an arcade mode and collectibles of some sort to help encourage players to keep playing.
Now that the first demo of the game has officially come out, how do you feel about its reception? And are there any criticisms you wish to improve on in later builds?
I feel like the reception so far has been insanely supportive. I'm really happy to see people enjoy something I had part in creating. I would have really liked to add a couple more fighters so each company had 2 reps, as well as making sure that online was up and running.
How do you plan to interact with the game's community?
I myself pop into general and see the fanbase as my friends. The better of a time they have in the community, the better chances they have of staying and supporting development. I'm extremely optimistic for the game's future, as we have a ton of surprises up our sleeves that we can't wait to show our lovely fans. Even though all we have is a demo with a handful of characters and stages, I want to make this very clear. This is only the beginning. We have a ton more content planned for the future, and I really hope our fans come along for the ride.
Introduce yourself, and what is your role in the Toon All Star Slam team?
My name's Circuit. I'm currently the lead artist on Toon All Star Slam. I do a lot of different things, but to put it as simply as possible, I'm the guy who makes the UI, the character renders, various stages and sprites for the game, and overall I try to lead all of our various artists and act as a general project lead, so that we stay on track and get things done on time with a clear vision.
When did you join the All Star Slam team?
I joined about 2 or so months into the project. I was contacted early, as our initial start came from some of the passionate fans of Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl, and I was fairly well known in that server for being a generally funny guy, and I was wanted on the team to do the character renders at the time. I only made art using a 3DS, so my stuff was, not all that great, so I initially declined. But after a week or so, I finally decided to come around and join the project as the artist who did renders. Now, this is where it gets interesting, as throughout that early development, I wanted to pitch in more help and offered to do a few sprites, and from there, I did most of the work on SpongeBob and Dexter. I grew more and more active and pitched in more and more on the project until eventually I'd done most of the art assets for the game. Thus, I was deemed lead artist.
Is this your first time working as a sprite artist / stage designer? And if so, what have you learned from your experience so far?
Yes, actually. I had basically no prior experience with sprite art or animation when I joined the project. However, my own artwork and my general animation skills were self-taught from me drawing and studying cartoons and animation ever since I was a very young kid. You can basically say that I learned sprite art and animation from complete scratch, and now I'm pretty dang good at it thanks to joining this project.
What's your history with the other developers? Do you have any prior history with them? Or did you meet them while working on this game?
I met most of these developers from the Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl server, but they were only mild acquaintances. However, my good friend Sato I met through an old high school buddy, and at the time I was unaware he was such a good programmer. I simply told him and my high school friend that I was making a platform fighter and game maker, and if they wanted to help me out, they could. Turns out he's extremely good at what he does.
How do you communicate with the other members of the team?
The team is all very open internally. We talk pretty consistently and always try to peer review our future plans, current plans, previous plans, and everything in between. Not a stone is left unturned without us looking at it and really considering if we're happy with it. And that's generally how we make sure stuff ends up exactly how we want. You'd think making a moveset would be as simple as, ooh, write down a cool thing on paper and then just put it into the game once you're sure on it, but game development never really is that simple. No, instead we implement an effective rough draft of a character and iterate on them over time to get them to as perfect of a state as we can. If a move feels good and works well, we keep it and refine it. If a move feels bad and doesn't work with their kit, we scrap it and put something better in. It results in characters feeling polished to a mirror shine, and us all putting our 100% into everything we can, because not a moment will ever go by where a cool idea couldn't be thought up on the spot and put in due to how perfect it fits.
What was the most difficult part you faced while working on the demo, and how did you overcome these difficulties?
Dexter. This is an interesting story. So his initial sprites were made to work with his kinda pale skin. The skin color was the same white as his coat now. Obviously this seems dumb, but it mainly came from the base we used to make all our custom moves being a GBA game in his case. And this crucial mistake led to his alternate colors being horrible in every conceivable way. How did we fix this? Chroma key. Basically, my good developer friend Lude had to painstakingly go through every single sprite Dexter had and set the colors for every single portion of his body to bright colors like lime green and magenta, so that we could use palettes to reset the colors to his usual white, blue, and purple. It was horrible, but it was greatly worth it because we were able to basically fix our biggest pet peeve right before launch.
Do you have any specific inspirations when working for concept art?
A big inspiration for my sprite artwork is Pizza Tower. That game came out very recently, but had been in development for years, and it always inspired me how they were able to capture expressive cartoony facial expressions and emotion through such small sprites, all made with pixel art. That was one important goal we wanted to stick to, making the characters feel super expressive just like their original shows.
What factors do you consider when designing a character or stage?
Above all, our main priority is making the characters as accurate to their source material as we possibly can.
Now that the first demo of the game has officially come out, how do you feel about its reception? And are there any criticisms you wish to improve on in later builds?
We are super enthusiastic about the positive reception we've gotten. Hearing people be so pleasantly surprised with the quality warms our hearts. We really poured every single bit of soul we could into the released product. Of course, we value criticism even more than the positive reception, because criticism allows us to make the game even better and iron out those flaws so that future players have an even better experience. I definitely would have had the game balanced a bit better, but it mostly came down to us needing community feedback first and foremost, so getting the balancing perfect was simply not really doable, which, you know, oh well. But at the end of the day, I'm very happy with the launch state of the game. The good news is that we have an upcoming patch, that might be out by the time this interview goes live, that irons out most of the launch issues that people had.
How do you plan to interact with the game's community?
We will always be super active on Discord and are always browsing the channels to see what people want. Always be sure to hit up the feedback channel, we're always listening. The future is looking bright, even if it's really uncertain as of now. We're very dedicated to this project and plan to support it for as long as we can. I got nothing. That's all I have to say. Cheers!
Introduce yourself, and what is your role in the Toon All Star Slam team?
I'm Sato, and I'm lead programmer of Toon All Star Slam.
When did you join the All Star Slam team?
I joined the Toon All Star Slam team in May 2022.
Is this your first time being the lead programmer for a game like this? And if so, what have you learned from your experience so far?
This is my first time being lead programmer of a team project, so it was a very difficult experience from my solo project. Before I worked on the Toon All Star Slam team, I worked on a couple basic JRPGs, an RE1 inspired horror game about mysterious stairs in the woods, and a JUS Megan fighting game starring anime and cartoon characters that I worked on for about 2 years. The experience on the Toon All Star Slam team has been a very different experience and has really helped me learn how to coordinate with a team.
What's your history with the other developers? Do you have any prior history with them? Or did you meet them while working on this game?
I met most of the TASS team while working on a game except for Circuit, who I met through a mutual friend, and he's the reason I joined the team.
How do you communicate with the other members of the team?
We mainly communicate using a Discord dev channel, but we occasionally discuss things in voice chat.
What was the most difficult part you faced while working on the demo, and how did you overcome these difficulties?
Some of Mickey and Grimm's specials were the most difficult part of the development. I spent multiple days just trying to get Mickey's thinner down special bucket to work. It was a similar experience with Grimm's neutral special. I had to spend many hours getting Billy and Mandy to move correctly.
What steps do you take to fix errors in the game's code?
First, I check the crash log to see the main error and then identify the lines of code that caused the problem so I can fix them.
Out of all the characters currently released, who do you consider the hardest character to code in, and why?
Mickey, because he has almost twice the amount of specials of the other characters, and some of them were really difficult to implement, such as the bucket.
Now that the first demo of the game has officially come out, how do you feel about its reception? And are there any criticisms you wish to improve on in later builds?
I feel really good about the reception. Everybody seemed to enjoy the game, which made me really happy. I noticed some criticisms about the cohesion of certain movesets and that some settings were hard to find, so I'd like to make some tutorials or UI changes to help make things more clear, and I want to try and make movesets feel more cohesive in the future.
How do you plan to interact with the game's community?
Other developers and I are always active in the Discord talking to the community, and we read all the requests and feedback that people are sending. I'm really optimistic about the future of TASS. Everybody on the development team is very active and we are always making steady progress. I want to thank the rest of the team for their contributions, and I'd like to thank the community for all of the support, and I ask them to keep giving support and feedback so we can make the best game possible.
Alright, so today I'm with, if you want to introduce yourself, go ahead.
I'm Calculator. I'm the brains behind the operation. I'm basically the one that started it all.
Awesome. Alright, again, Calco, thank you very much for agreeing to do this interview. I really do appreciate it. It's going to be an interesting experience to get to know the mindset of somebody who's working on a platform fighter themselves, so this is a great learning opportunity, sir, not only for me, but for the audience listening to this audio.
Thanks for having me.
So, let's start out with question number 1. It's probably the most important question. How are you doing? How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. It's 2023. It's now February, although I don't miss January at all. But yeah, I'm doing all right.
Awesome. It's great to hear. All right, but to really get into the questions, I want to know, how did you come up with the idea of like Toon All Star Brawl, and like when did the development of the game start?
Well, I have to give credit where credit is due. I honestly I love cartoons, and I love video games, and I like to make things that people need or at least want, but no one ever thought to. So I gotta give credit to Nickelodeon All Star Brawl and Multiverses for igniting my passion. And a while in 2021, I heard about a program called Platform Fighter Engine, which basically has the groundwork for creating a platform fighter. And when I bought so it basically drove me to buy the program and then begin development. Then it was in November 2021, it was just me, and then eventually I started getting people together, and now and now it is what you see today.
All right, that's good. So, have you ever really this is like their first time ever directing a game like this?
Yeah, it's basically the first time I've ever I've had attempts in the past trying to make a game in general, but they kind of fell flat. But this was the first time I've ever actually had a project that fully went through.
Well, that's actually pretty interesting to know, honestly. Yeah, that's pretty cool. So, like, what have you learned so far as, like, what are some stuff that you've learned as both, like, making the game as then a director yourself? Like, what are some stuff that you've learned so far?
Well, for me, it's learning how to command a team to get them to do what you need. And honestly, I've always had to listen what my teammates have to offer and let them do their thing to see what they can do for each character and such. And I have to I have to mandate order, make sure there's no argument, or basically we're all on the same page. I always do team discussions just to make sure we're all got the same goal in mind.
All right. So, like, I just want to know, basically, like, what is the basic structure of, like, the development of the game? Like, I already know that you learned, like, about platform engine and all that, but what has been the plan from the start, and what do you think the plan will be, like, in the future? Like,
all right. When I started out the game, I basically wanted to bring out a roster of creative and diverse characters that have been made throughout the years, basically getting all the golden icons like SpongeBob, Bugs Bunny, and Mickey Mouse to the more modern cartoon icons like, let's see, there's Anne from Amphibia. I'm trying to think of something for Nickelodeon, but they haven't had the best of luck with cartoons as of late. But, the modern ones are probably like Mordecai and Rigby for Cartoon Network, and then there's Timmy Turner from the Fairly Odd Parents. You know, I want to. My idea is to get a roster together of basically a character that everyone can get on board with, but I also want to make it competitively viable. Basically, give people a drive to host tournaments and such. Because it's just seeing all these characters together on the same screen is already crazy enough. But imagine the hype of when it's being taken competitively.
Honestly, yeah, that's on like the concept itself is like so interesting because like for something like Toon All Star Brawl, like you can literally have any character you want from like Nickelodeon, Disney, and like we can already see that with like the base demo and the characters that's been announced. So honestly,
yeah,
like the possibilities for it could be basically endless.
Yeah, and there's a reason why it's called Toon All Star Slam and not something of an amalgamation of the three companies together. It's all about cartoon characters. So while the main big three are essential to the roster, we also want to expand upon that and basically introduce different other shows like from Netflix, to YouTube sometimes, and you know basically everything in between, like even shows you probably never even heard of.
Wow, so basically any cartoon character could be included in the game if you wanted to.
If a character was drawn and animated and put on a platform to be watched, they're allowed in.
Okay. Though I do want to ask this, since it's something I did see brought up like a couple days ago, but someone brought up the fact that either Viacom or Disney or any other of those big companies, like they're pretty secure when it comes to their IPs. So let's say, for example, they come after this game. So how do you plan on managing that?
I can understand the concern behind that. While we haven't received anything, even though we've been developing it and shouting it out for the past year, they basically the plan is in case they ever told us to cease and desist, we basically remove all traces of the game, go underground, and try to rework the game into something that's got the same familiar feel, but takes out whatever caused the companies to get mad at us in the first place. Because this is a passion project after all, and we want people to enjoy it because it's by fans for fans, as the launch demo trailer said.
Honestly, yeah, that's honestly like the best thing you could do at the moment. So, kind of moving that out of the side, what's your history with the other lead developers? Like, do you have any prior history with them, or like have you known them or worked with them before in the past?
Only Oddball is the only one I've had a prior relationship with before everyone else, because I met him when Nickelodeon All Star Brawl was announced, and they created a Discord server. That's when I was pretty much new to everyone there, and I just kind of stayed quiet. But Oddball was the one that I kept talking with frequently, and then we just became best friends and formed a group over the bonds of cartoons and games. He was kind of there at the start. When I was beginning to wonder why these other platform fighters haven't been delivering on their front.
Okay, that's pretty cool. So how did you end up meeting Circuit and Sato? So like, did you end up meeting them like through working on this game, or were they external help like that you wanted to get for the game?
When I created the Twitter account and then created the Discord server shortly after I was starting to develop the game and showing it off, and they kind of appeared in the server itself. So when they wanted to work on the game, I asked for what they wanted and what they could do, and afterwards they became basically the main heads of the game, helping me get the game to shape the way it is now, and basically help the other team members to pull their weight. Circuit hasn't actually spread it before me, so now he's actually a pro at it. I can't say master because he still has limitations.
Okay, that's pretty good. So when it comes to how the game plays, how Toon All Star Brawl plays, what do you think makes the game stand out from other platform fighters? Because I already know, like you already told me about the inspiration that it has from Nick All Star Brawl and Multiverses, but what do you think will be the driving point that makes this game stand out both in its presentation and gameplay?
We already stand out as far as cartoon platform fights from the other two, because we have the closest thing to our moveset for each character is Smash Brothers. Every other platform fighter either doesn't have any grabs or has less moves in the movesets for some reason. But we also want to introduce different kinds of mechanics in each move, basically make them stand out as both character wise and gameplay wise. So let me give you an example. Like Grim from the Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. Originally, his neutral special was going to be just using Billy or Mandy to parry other attacks, but now it's evolved to basically them moving across the stage and delivering a different kind of hitbox. Billy basically can do projectiles, but can self-damage Grim, while Mandy can offer a larger hit stun time, but does little damage.
But like in the topic of characters, now that we're in that, when choosing what characters you want to put in the game, what is the primary focus when developing them?
It's a give and take, because these characters are so iconic. They have a lot of things in their arsenal to help them out. Like let's take SpongeBob for example. He has a little bit of NSMB formula in him. You can probably tell that from his neutral special, but his original back air was going to be a Krabby Patty, but we no, we need something different. Sergey brought up the idea of the Reef Blower, which not only is a good reference, but it makes for a good recovery stance, because it does a lot of knockback, and so much that can push him back towards the direction of the stage. So it's a little bit of reference, but a little more, how can we make this character more competitively viable for tournaments?
So the main focus of like the game is to have it both be for casual players, but also to have like a competitive scene, right?
Precisely. We want it for anyone who's been in the platform game for a long time, and those who are just learning about it for the first time.
That's a good balance. That's a really good balance to have, honestly. What are some like features that you want to add for any future characters? If you were to add a character or whatever, just throwing it out there, what mechanic do you wish to add in the future?
That's a bit of an interesting question, because it all depends on what type of character we want to add. Because while we want to give them something unique to the current files, we also want to give them something that just makes sense. So, if all honesty, I probably would want a character that has a stance ability, basically a boost their stats depending on what said character has.
Sort of like Joker from Smash Ultimate, right? Or something.
Yeah,
like
or Shulk, actually, more like Shulk.
Okay, then. Honestly, that's a pretty interesting feature to add. Alright, so moving on from characters to stages. Now, what do you think is the most important feature or aspect when it comes to creating a stage?
I think it's all about the platforming, because you need a stage that looks good, but you also need a stage that doesn't knock you off or not able you to get back on due to it being too high or some other thing. And as you may have noticed, we're not also focusing. We have stages that are not from any show. I'm not gonna say anything else, but we're trying to add more original stages, because just we want to build the idea of the fact that there's a multiverse out there and there needs to be a way to navigate it.
Yeah, I honestly feel like having original stages is pretty good. Like, it expands on the originality of the game itself. So honestly, that's pretty good.
Yeah. Plus, as far as original stages go, it doesn't have to be like a location that's never been brought up. It could even be a remix of another stage, like Trophy's Edge in Multiverses, right? It's a location that's like unknown, but has both a Wonder Woman statue and an Acme box. Personally, I like a stage that can bring about a chaotic version of one or two worlds.
That kind of reminds me a lot of not to interrupt you or anything, but it kind of like what you're saying kind of reminds me of what PlayStation All Stars Battle Royale did with their game, because when it starts, it's like being in the normal stage, but in the middle of the match, like another stage from another world invades. So, do you want something like that to be a part of your game?
Something like that. We're eventually we'll want to try and get a stage and that has a mid transition, but we haven't had the best success with that. So we're putting it on the back burner until we can figure out the coding.
Actually, now that you mentioned that, would you actually consider that to be one of the hardest things that you've done? Like, when it comes to the development of the game, what is the most difficult thing that you faced while working on the demo, and how did you overcome it?
Honestly, it would have to be the sprite situation. Coding is something that we're able to get done in that, but the problem is we don't have a lot of we have sprites, but some of them don't have the time to help us, or they don't want to work on a certain character. We had an internal release day, but we kind of delayed it. We didn't want to say, hey, this is going to come out in so and so day, but then we couldn't deliver on time.
Just being honest with you, like the community, just saying, hey, we can't get this on time, so you know what, we're going to delay it for a bit. That's good.
Yeah. Even when we were announcing the date for the demo, if you may have noticed, all we did post was just the picture of the Moon Knights and the words "Never Forget" along with January 31st. We didn't want to say if that's the day of the demo because we weren't sure if we were going to actually deliver on time. I have to give credit to Circuit to that one too, because I actually didn't know who the Moon Knights were until he told me.
Is there anything you would have liked to add to the demo before its initial release?
I would have preferred at least one or two more characters into the demo just to give it a bit more variety, because while SpongeBob, Dexter, Grim, and Mickey are good as a start, I would have preferred at least one more.
Alright, so now that the first demo of the game officially came out, how have you and the team felt about its reception?
Honestly, it's actually been really good. I was worried that it wasn't going to meet people's standards, but everyone was actually really enjoying it, and I've seen a lot of videos of people doing crazy combos with Mickey and SpongeBob. It was just really insane. But the most common complaint was that some of the moves felt a little here and there. From what I heard, Grim and Mickey don't appear to be have a moveset that's just all over the place. Like they don't have something that's like concrete to a category. SpongeBob and Dexter I haven't heard that, any complaints from, but Grim and Mickey have been the common complaint as far as moveset wise.
And in as far as other criticisms go, is there any others you would like to improve on for future builds?
Well, we noticed there was a bug with Grim's up special, which when we heard about it, we weren't exactly sure how they happened. So maybe next time when we try to get a new build, we try to make everything we can to try and break the game, so we wouldn't get this hear about it later.
Other than that, how do you plan on interacting with the game's community?
Well, we originally hosted like TV nights, but I think when Amphibia had a problem with their episode getting leaked, we had to stop because we were worried Disney was going to come find us and shut us all down. So we might try to reintroduce that again, maybe do a community game night or host a internal tournament with the game. We have plans, just we're kind of focused on trying to get the main 12 up and ready so we can start introducing new characters. That's kind of the reason why we haven't done any in a while.
And the final question that I have to ask is, what are your overall goals for the game heading forward, and will this inspire you to pursue making more games in the future?
Basically, we want to become like the next Super Smash Flash. Basically, give constant updates no matter how many years it's taken us. We want to keep adding characters and stages until we decide to end development altogether. But one goal I have in mind is to basically pull a Smash Brothers Brawl and create a story mode, because when you're given an opportunity to bring in characters from all over reality, you want to create an awesome story out of it. Basically, we would want cutscenes. Depending on what we have at the time, we might actually start looking for voice actors or pull in or do RPG style cutscenes where it's just text boxes and movements.
So with that, those are all the questions I have. So would you like to give the audience your social medias, or like do you have a place where they could follow you by any chance? I
have my own Twitter account, which also has the link to the official Toon All Star Slam account that they can follow me. I'll just send the link to your Discord.
Is there anything else you would like to say for the audience?
We want to keep you engaged, so we might have stuff to share in the future, but can't really say for sure because I don't want to promise something and then have to take it back later.
That's the end of the interview. Thanks, Calco, for joining me in this little interview thing.
My pleasure.
If you haven't checked it out yet, Toon All Star Slam is right now free. Its first demo is out on itch.io. So if you would like to check it out, the link of the itch.io and the server will be in the description down below. And with that, this has been Manuel D, and thanks for listening.